You know, Glenn Ignacio also has some thoughts on all this. Retired Air Force Special Operations Commander joins us now. I know that because I've been talking to him for a couple of years about it. And, you know, what would you say kind of just in, not in response, but in addition to what the ambassador was saying there about what's next here, given what we just heard at the White House? I know the meeting is still going on.
Yeah, I have to agree with the ambassador and what he's saying. You know, we focus a lot on the military operations and so forth. And as we talked about it even yesterday, is, you know, militarily, this is one thing and they can fight and so forth, but it doesn't change anything as far as getting to peace. You know, the biggest concern about the Tomahawks is, yes, it gets deeper strikes for Ukraine into Russia, but that's still not going to end the war. It escalates. And the last thing we want is to see a Tomahawk flying into Moscow, hitting the Kremlin or something. That would really push things. But as we saw President Trump do similar to the Middle East, he got a lot of the Arab nations that were friendly with the Palestinians and Hamas to actually come together. Is that plausible for him to get to China or others? I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing is that these meetings getting face-to-face with Putin are critical. And it's also critical that he deals with it first before Zelensky, because I don't think Zelensky and Putin are really going to have a productive meeting otherwise.
Probably not. I mean, I thought it was interesting, the ambassador making the comparisons or using the Middle East and what happened in Gaza to say, hey, this was the projection of American strength and that worked there. Zelensky, too, seemed to be trying to use what happened there to say that, hey, if peace can be had there, we can do something in my country in terms of momentum. Here's what Zelensky said at the White House a short time ago.
My congratulations with your successful ceasefire in the Middle East.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you did it. And I think this is the momentum to finish Russia's war against Ukraine. I think that, yes, we understand that Putin is not ready. I think not ready, but I think that I'm confident that with your help, we can stop this war.
With your help, and the ambassador's point was that the help or the approach on the U.S. side might be different in Ukraine than it was in Gaza.
Yeah, I think it's, like you said, you know, striking Iran and others and having the strength there. But what are we going to do? I think, honestly, you really do see that Russia is sort of playing this as a Russia versus NATO game. And I don't think there's going to be any peace there. I think it's going to have to be completely negotiated out, as we've talked about. And it's not a military solution that's going to end this war. I think one of the things that Zelensky, of course, is concerned about is what are the security guarantees afterwards if this ends. But we do see, as we said in the past, a lot of the EU, or excuse me, the NATO nations also saying that they're ready to put boots on the ground in Ukraine, which is, again, one of the issues. So this can escalate rather significantly from a military side. But Trump really has to get to the point of how do we do this without increasing things on a military side? And that's either the threats with these weapons that brings Putin to the table, or it's the sanctions or other things. But it's really getting Putin to the table straight, face-to-face, and actually getting action out of Putin versus the talk as he's played Trump. Unfortunately, regardless if you like it, it has delayed things, and he's played Trump in those delays.
Yeah, been able to, you know, drag things out and push it out timeline-wise and keep the war going while he, you know, wants to or tries to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. I want to ask you about Venezuela. I mean, we've played the colorful comment already, but, you know, it's interesting because what's been going on there is layered in some ways. We know about the strikes against the cartels, and there's been this back and forth about whether those, you know, even I talked to a Republican senator the other day, Senator Mike Brown, who had said they have more questions about that. Okay. But then you have the president this week bringing up possible ground assaults, talking about authorizing CIA covert operations when he was asked about that. And then here's the extended conversation in the Oval right at the end of the Q&A with Zelensky when Venezuela came up. And, you know, you'll see he was being asked about Maduro, the leader there, maybe making some offers, and here's how it went.
It has been reported that Maduro offered everything in his country, all the natural resources. He even recorded a message to you in English recently, offering mediation. What should he do to stop that?
He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to around with the United States.
And then he kind of ended the news conference. All right, so when the president does something like that, we've seen him do it before with Israel and Gaza. He said something like that. Remember, he was walking to the helicopter. I think he's doing it on purpose to make a point. He knows it's going to get a lot of attention. What do you make of what's been going on, though, in Venezuela, especially this week?
Absolutely. Now, the first thing, as we mentioned, is like President Trump likes to threaten rather aggressively, saying, I'm coming down hard on you, and then negotiate out. So we see that. The idea of what's going to go on with Maduro for a ground incursion or whatever, absolutely dangerous thing. I don't think it's definitely warranted. As we talked about, this is also a lot with the cartels, the ones that are through the entire Central America and in Venezuela. So going against Maduro, if there's a way where he's going to get natural resources and everything that benefits the United States, of course, he's going to do that. But again, it's to be able to stop the influx of the drugs and the cartels coming into the United States. Will Maduro do that? I think it'd be smart for him to do that. But one of the other things, though, we have to look at is, first of all, President Trump bringing out that covert operations of the CIA and stuff. That's stuff you do not do. That's a dangerous thing that puts both lives on the line, and also it doesn't give him any plausible deniability if something goes bad. In addition to that, the Southern Command commander, the admiral, just stepped down in the end of December. He announced his retirement, which is less than a year in place. So there's a lot of infighting and some really uncomfortable operations to what is going on with the strikes there, in addition to what is talked about in Venezuela. So we have a lot more complex issues going on in Venezuela, but I hope we don't go into the country itself.
Just to be clear, your point is, if it's one thing if it's the United States military, but if it's the Central Intelligence Agency conducting what are supposed to be covert operations, you just don't want to see the president speaking about those operations publicly.
Yeah, absolutely. Covert means that we go in quietly, nobody knows about it, and there's an after effect. Clandestine means we go in and come out and you never knew we were there. You don't announce it preemptively, and at the same time, as a president, you want plausible deniability. So if something happened bad, you don't want Trump directly tied to that. That's why you don't discuss covert operations. So just the discussion of that bothers me, regardless if it's a talking point or operationally. It's just not a good thing to do, and that's the way we played it in special operations. We just don't want to be talked about.
So I know you have experience there in special operations in your career. Thank you, sir, as always. Major Glenn Ignacio with us at 14 past the hour.